let's say when you die, you get up to the gates of heaven, and you enter the throne room of God. Well, what would you like to say to him?
Bone cancer in children. What's that all about? Yes, cancer inside of children's bones.
That's Stephen Fry on what he would say to God. What he would choose his last blasphemy to be once he gets to heaven's gates, if he could stand the awesome presence, sort of thing. Hey. Anyway, so this video is supposed to be on the problem of evil, the problem of the problem of the problem of evil, the problem of evil exponential, problem of evil factorial. Not just squared, factorial. It's been fairly well debunked by this point, but, I gotta throw my hat in the ring, because there's something I've personally discovered about the problem of evil that I think is real goofins, and I haven't really seen anybody else talk about, dear laddie, old boy. First, let's get into it. What is the problem of evil? Well, the problem of evil is a funky thing in many respects, just absolutely garbaggio. So basically, the problem of evil goes, hey, look at me, I'm this, and I'm an atheist, you see. I love the heat. You see me outside, I love the heat so much, I want to spend eternity in it. That's a good one. That's actually a really good one. It's an atheist saying, okay, I'll grant you the premise. They don't really say this, but they say, if God existed, you say that he's all-powerful and all-good at the same time. Well, if he's all-powerful and all-good, why does he allow evil? That doesn't seem a very all-powerful, all-good thing to do, If I could stop, billions of people's suffering at the drop of a hat, I would. The implication being that God therefore does not exist because he can't be all-powerful and all-good and allow evil. He's either not all-powerful or not all-good since he allows evil. Now that's the funny thing. One of the funny things is you say, okay, therefore God is not all-powerful or all-good. But somehow they also seem to jump from there to, that means he doesn't exist. This is an argument against the existence of God. No, it's not. The frickin' premise is God exists. So how the El Diablo is the conclusion denying the premise? Anyway, the funny thing about it that I discovered is, why do we always stop there? Why do we stop at God doesn't exist? Because the implications, it goes so much further than that. Let's say God exists, God exists. But guess what? Evil exists. So God, therefore, through a non sequitur, cannot exist. God cannot exist. Hip, hip, hooray. And that's where they want to stop. Well, I say, no, let's keep going. God does not exist. Therefore, there's nothing that makes morality binding in this world. We're all chemical little reactions. Your truth, you atheist, is just as true as a madman's hallucination. It's both what your brains are doing under that temperature and pressure. It's just a chemical reaction. There's no real truth. There's, of course, no ethics, no binding ethics. If there is an ethic in the world, it's evolution, and I don't even know how you argue for evolution being an ethic. Or even a rule of the world, but let's say evolution is the only good. Well, evolution's been propagated by a bunch of things that we would call evil, rape, murder, all that stuff. That is evolution. It's the propagation of the best genes. Anyway, so obviously there can't be any real objective good. good and evil are subjective standards. This has been laid out and proven by so many different things. If you're an atheist, if you sit down and think for a little bit, you start coming to Nietzschean sort of nihilistic observations about your worldview. Okay, I guess evil is just a matter of taste. I don't like it when bone cancer shows up in children. I don't like it when a 7-year-old in Vietnam is, raped and murdered, stuff like that. I don't like it. But I can't say, that the universe shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, so we all know, if you're an atheist, if the world is, as the atheists claim, there is no real evil. Well, wait a second. So you're saying God doesn't exist, therefore there's no evil. Well, if there's no evil, then how the devil do we have the problem of evil? So obviously the problem of evil goes away because evil isn't a thing. If there's no evil, then there's no evil in the world to be morally outraged at. Therefore, God doesn't necessarily not exist. And so the whole premise kind of backfires. So, well, if God, if the way we're proving God doesn't exist isn't true, is self-defeating, well then I guess God exists, doesn't it? If the proof of his non-existence is not true. That's kind of a stretch again, but it's a much less of a stretch than saying God exists and is not all-powerful and not good, therefore God doesn't exist. What are we talking about? You're just saying the exact opposite of the thing you just said. So it's less of a stretch. Anyway, so God does exist, therefore there is evil in the world. Well, if there's evil in the world, we got to account for how an all-good and all-powerful God could allow it in the world. Well, therefore, God doesn't exist. But if God doesn't exist, evil doesn't exist. So if evil doesn't exist, then there's no problem of evil. Therefore, I'll let God exist. And then, so it's kind of a little merry-go-round, a little logical merry-go-round. Yippity-doo-dah, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. That sort of thing. So that's my big issue with the problem of evil. The premise accepts God existence. So it says, so since God exists, therefore he must not be all-powerful or all-good. Okay, but he does exist. Wait, no. You see, he actually doesn't exist if he's not all-powerful or all-good. What? How the devil did we get there? And then they just want to stop there. But no, you got to keep going. I'm going to push you along in this little trolley of logical fatalism. So God doesn't exist somehow from the non sequitur argument you just gave. Well, it turns out if God doesn't exist, then we don't have no problem of evil. Therefore, God can exist. And if God can exist, I'd say the overwhelming odds of him existing to prove the necessity of evil, or to be a necessary proof for evil, I should say. That's that. Anyway.